General Zaxtrol stood motionless before the expansive viewing portal of his command ship, the Eternal Dominion. His 4 eyes narrowed as they focused on the blue-white marble suspended in the void before him. Earth, such an unremarkable name for what would soon become the 33rd conquest of the hegemony. Sir, I must insist you review these findings again. Lieutenant Emma Hayes's voice carried an edge of urgency that irritated the general's secondary hearing membrane. He turned slowly, his crystalline armor catching the light from nearby stars, creating an intimidating display of authority that had silenced countless subordinates before. Hayes, however, didn't flinch. The young intelligence officer stood her ground, datapad extended. Her determination would have been admirable in a member of his own species. In a human, it was merely amusing. Lieutenant, Zaxtrol's translator rendered his clicks and whistles into smooth English. I have reviewed your analysis. Twice. Your species' propensity for warfare is noted, but ultimately irrelevant. With respect, General, you're misunderstanding the data. Hayes swiped through her report, bringing up battle footage from what humans called World War I. Our conflicts aren't just about destruction. Each war has driven unprecedented technological advancement. The atomic bomb, radar, jet engines, all developed and perfected in just 6 years of combat. Zaxtrol waved a dismissive appendage. Primitive achievements. The hegemony mastered atomic fusion before your species discovered agriculture. That's exactly my point, sir. Hayes brought up another display, this one showing the exponential curve of human technological advancement. The hegemony achieved stability through gradual progression. Humanity. We thrive on pressure. We advance fastest when our survival is threatened. The general's secondary arms crossed in what his species considered a gesture of patronizing patience. Lieutenant, your passion for your species' history is commendable, but misplaced. The hegemony has perfected the art of conquest over 10,000 cycles. Our tactics are refined, our technology superior, our victory assured. He turned back to the viewing portal, watching as his fleet moved into precise attack formation. 30,000 ships, each one a testament to hegemony engineering excellence. Standard invasion protocol called for overwhelming force, 5 ships for every major population center. He had brought 10. Sir, Hayes tried one final time. At least consider our adaptability. In less than 3 centuries, we went from horse-drawn carriages to quantum computers, from primitive flight to orbital stations. Our learning curve is impressive for a young species, Zaxtrol interrupted. But the gap between your achievements and our capabilities remains vast. Your highest military technology barely matches our civilian equipment. He gestured to a holographic display showing Earth's orbital defenses, primitive kinetic weapons platforms, a handful of armed satellites, and a few hundred military vessels of varying sizes. Their largest ship would barely qualify as a medium cruiser in his fleet. Your species will have the honor of joining the hegemony, Lieutenant. Your unique traits will be studied, documented, and preserved in our cultural archives. This is a gift, not a tragedy. Hayes' shoulders stiffened, but her voice remained professional. Request permission to submit one final observation. Sir. Zaxtrol's mandibles clicked in what humans had learned to interpret as a sigh. Granted, Lieutenant. Then you will return to your station for the commencement of operations. In all our history, humans have never united against a common enemy. Hayes' words carried weight he would later wish he'd recognized. Every war you've studied was humans fighting humans. We've never had to turn our full creative potential against an outside threat. You're not just invading Earth, General. You're giving humanity its first opportunity to fight as one species. The General marked her report as paranoid speculation in the fleet's database. With a casual gesture, he opened a command channel to all ships. Begin standard invasion protocol. Phase 1. Orbital superiority. Maximum efficiency, minimal collateral damage. As Hayes left the bridge, Zaxtrol missed the slight smile that crossed her face. In less than 24 hours, he would remember her words and understand true fear. But for now, he watched with satisfaction as his fleet descended upon Earth, completely unaware that he was about to give humanity exactly what they needed. A reason to show the galaxy why Earth's nations had spent centuries preparing for this very moment. The first plasma barrage from the Hegemony fleet illuminated Earth's upper atmosphere in brilliant shades of green and purple. General Zax Troll watched with practiced disinterest as his ships moved into textbook attack formation. 3 centuries of invasion protocols had proven the effectiveness of overwhelming force combined with precision targeting. First wave reporting minimal resistance, his tactical officer announced. Human orbital defenses are. The officer paused, mandibles clicking in confusion. Sir, their defense platforms are powering down. Zax Troll's secondary arms twitched in irritation. Cowardice, typical of primitive species when faced with superior technology. He turned to order the second wave forward, but a new voice cut through the command channel. This is Captain James Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. The transmission carried an oddly cheerful tone that made Zax Troll's dorsal plates bristle. Welcome to the Sol system. We've been expecting you. Before the general could respond, the supposedly dormant defense platforms erupted with electromagnetic pulses. They weren't shutting down. They were charging up. 3 Hegemony cruisers went dark, their sensitive electronics overwhelmed by the crude but effective attack. Impossible, Zax Troll hissed. Their technology shouldn't be capable of. Oh, that's not technology. Morrison's voice carried what humans called a chuckle. That's just physics. Sometimes the old ways work best. Speaking of which, the asteroid belt that Hegemony scouts had dismissed as a navigational hazard suddenly came alive. What appeared to be primitive mining vessels emerged from hiding spots within the rocks, their industrial cutting lasers repurposed into crude but devastating weapons. They struck from impossible angles, using the asteroids themselves as cover and amplification points for their attacks. Battle Group 7. Eliminate those mining ships. Zax Troll ordered, his legendary composure cracking. Battle Group 3. Target there. Sir. His tactical officer's voice rose in pitch. The human ships, they're not following any known combat doctrine. Each vessel appears to be executing independent tactical decisions. On the main display, Zax Troll watched in growing horror as Captain Morrison's flagship, Thunderchild, performed a maneuver that should have torn it apart. The ship cut power to all systems, appearing dead in space, only to roar back to life at point-blank range near the Eternal Victory, his prized dreadnought. Interesting design you have here, Morrison commented as his ship unleashed a barrage of kinetic weapons. Lots of exposed sensor arrays. Bet those cost a fortune. The dreadnought's outer sensor ring shattered, blinding its most sophisticated targeting systems. Zax Troll felt his inner stomach clench as he realized the humans weren't aiming to destroy his ships. They were systematically disabling their most expensive components. All ships, maintain formation. He ordered, but it was already too late. The human vessels moved like water, flowing through gaps in his perfect battle lines, turning his carefully coordinated fleet into a chaotic mess of individual skirmishes. Lieutenant Hayes, Zax Troll called out, seeking the intelligence officer's insight, only to find her station empty. A quick check showed she had transferred to Thunderchild's crew 3 days before the invasion began. Wondering about Emma, Morrison's voice carried that infuriating human amusement again. She'll be back once you're ready to talk. Until then, let's see what else your ships can teach us about advanced combat technology. A new wave of Earth ships emerged from the dark side of the moon, their designs unlike anything in the first wave. They'd adapted their vessels mid-battle, incorporating observed weaknesses in hegemony defenses. Tactical analysis, Zax Troll demanded, his voice tight with suppressed rage. Sir, they're learning. Each engagement provides them data, and they're modifying their attacks in real time. Our standard responses are becoming predictable to them. The general watched as 3 more of his cruisers fell to the innovative human tactics. His perfectly orchestrated invasion had devolved into a lesson in human adaptability, with his own fleet serving as unwilling teachers. Perhaps, he admitted quietly, Lieutenant Hayes's analysis deserved more attention. He opened a channel to his remaining ships. All vessels, strategic withdrawal. Reform at Rally Point Beta. Leaving so soon. Morrison's final transmission carried a hint of disappointment. But we've only just started showing you what humanity can do when we have someone worth learning from. Come back anytime. We'll keep practicing. As the hegemony fleet retreated, Zaxtrol realized with dawning horror that this wasn't just a tactical defeat. He had given humanity exactly what they needed. A practical demonstration of advanced space combat technology delivered right to their doorstep, and they had treated it like a masterclass. General Zaxtrol's private quarters aboard the Eternal Dominion had become a tomb of holographic displays and data streams. 3 days had passed since the disastrous first engagement, and sleep had become a distant memory. His 4 eyes burned from constantly scanning Lieutenant Hayes's archived reports he had previously dismissed as paranoid ramblings. Computer, replay tactical analysis of human conflict designated Operation Desert Storm. He commanded, his translator off, voice rough from hours of continuous study. The holographic display shifted, showing primitive ground vehicles moving across a desert landscape. What had initially seemed like crude warfare now revealed layers of sophistication he'd missed. The humans hadn't just fought. They had revolutionized combat doctrine in a matter of weeks. Air superiority, precision strikes, psychological operations, all executed with technology centuries behind the hegemony's capabilities. A soft chime announced a new transmission. General. His tactical officer's voice wavered. Major Lisa Walker's Special Forces unit has struck again. 3 more supply convoys intercepted. They knew our escort patterns. Zaxtrol's mandibles clicked in frustrated understanding. He pulled up Walker's service record, another file he should have studied before the invasion. Graduate of something called West Point, specialist in asymmetric warfare, and author of a classified thesis titled Theoretical Counters to Superior Alien Technology. The timestamp caught his eye. The thesis was written 5 years before first contact. They were preparing, he whispered to the empty room. Not just Walker. All of them. His secondary arms moved frantically across the data displays, pulling up more files. The Space Force that many had mocked as premature. The Strategic Defense Initiative from decades earlier. Countless war games and scenarios. A new document caught his attention. The Art of War by Sun Tzu. He began reading, and his blood ran cold. Supreme excellence consists of breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. The humans had written this over 2,000 years ago, yet its principles had been perfectly executed against his fleet. Computer, display Lieutenant Hayes's original threat assessment. The familiar document appeared, but now he saw it with new eyes. She had meticulously documented humanity's pattern of exponential growth during conflicts. World War I had accelerated aircraft development by decades. World War II had compressed radar advancement into years instead of centuries. The Cold War had pushed space technology forward at an unprecedented rate. General, another transmission interrupted. We've detected unusual movement near Jupiter's moons. Major Walker's units appear to be training. Zaxtrol's confusion showed in his clicked response. Yes, sir. They're practicing maneuvers we used in the first battle, but they're improving them, adding variations we hadn't considered. Sir, they're not just learning our tactics, they're evolving them. The general turned to his largest display, showing humanity's military advancement timeline. Every defeat, every setback, every challenge had become a catalyst for growth. The British burned Washington, D.C. The humans rebuilt it stronger. Germany introduced submarine warfare. Humanity developed sonar and depth charges. The Cold War threatened annihilation. They turned the arms race into a space race. Computer, show me current human military deployment patterns. The display shifted, revealing something that made his inner stomach clench. Their forces weren't positioned according to any standard defensive doctrine. They were arranged in a testing pattern, probing for weaknesses, gathering data with each engagement. A final document caught his eye. A psychological analysis of human responses to overwhelming odds. The results defied conventional logic. Most species became more predictable under pressure, falling back on ingrained responses. Humans became more creative. They innovated. They adapted. They seemed to draw strength from the very circumstances that should break them. "Sir," his tactical officer's voice returned, more urgent now. "Major Walker's forces are deploying a new formation we've never seen. It appears to be a hybrid of our precision strike patterns and their guerrilla tactics." Zaxtrol stared at the tactical display, watching humanity's military evolution unfold in real time. They weren't just fighting his forces. They were using each encounter as a laboratory, each defeat as a lesson, each victory as a stepping stone to something new. Lieutenant Hayes didn't provide a threat assessment, he realized aloud. She gave us a warning. His eyes turned to Earth, visible through his quarter's viewing portal. And we didn't just ignore it. We gave them exactly what they needed. A reason to unite, and an advanced enemy to learn from. Colonel Marcus Rodriguez watched his oxygen meter tick down with casual disinterest. The bridge of the Defiant Spirit lay in ruins around him, emergency force fields containing the vacuum where the main viewport had been. Half his bridge crew worked in sealed combat suits, manual override cables snaking between critical systems that the automated controls could no longer reach. "Status report," he called out, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Main weapons at 30%, shields failing, life support critical in sections 3 through 7. Lieutenant Sarah Parker responded, her hands dancing across 3 separate emergency control panels. "Sir, by all standard metrics, we should be dead." Rodriguez smiled. "Good thing we don't follow standard metrics. Engineering, how's that bypass coming?" "Just spliced the last neural conductor, sir." Chief Engineer Mike Thompson's voice crackled through static. "Rerouted bridge controls through the auxiliary weapon station. It's not pretty, but it'll shoot." Through the shimmering emergency field, Rodriguez watched General Zaxtrol's fleet attempting to maintain their precise formation. The hegemony ships moved like dancers following choreographed steps, each maneuver calculated for maximum efficiency. "Time to show them some Earth-style improvisation," Rodriguez announced. "All hands, execute maneuver Steel Rain." The Defiant Spirit's remaining engines fired in seemingly random patterns. To the hegemony sensors, the ship appeared to be tumbling out of control, its systems failing. 3 cruisers moved to intercept what they assumed was easy prey. "They're still using the same targeting algorithms," Parker reported, her suited figure illuminated by sparking consoles. "Predictable as clockwork." "Remind me to thank Hayes for that intel," Rodriguez replied. "Thompson, how long can we maintain vacuum operations?" "Emergency suits are rated for 6 hours," the engineer responded. "But I think I can squeeze 8 out of them. The crew's getting pretty good at working in Zerog." A hegemony cruiser moved into optimal firing position, its weapons charging. Rodriguez watched its approach through the tactical display, counting down silently. The alien ship's attack pattern matched perfectly with Hayes' analysis. They hadn't adapted since the first engagement. "Now," Rodriguez commanded. The Defiant Spirit's tumble suddenly reversed. Emergency thrusters fired precisely, bringing weapons to bear at point-blank range. The hegemony cruiser shields, calibrated for long-range energy weapons, proved useless against physical debris fired from makeshift rail guns, storage containers, and damaged hull plating converted into projectiles. "Direct hits," Parker reported with satisfaction. "Their primary sensor array is shattered. They're blind at close range." "Begin Phase 2, Rodriguez ordered. "Show them why they call us Steel Rain." The Defiant Spirit's crew moved with practiced precision, each member knowing their role in this desperate gambit. They had drilled for this scenario countless times, perfecting their ability to function in vacuum conditions. What the hegemony saw as damage control limitations, humanity had turned into tactical advantages. On the Eternal Dominion's bridge, General Zax Troll watched in horrified fascination as the human vessel executed maneuvers his tactical computers classified as mechanically impossible. "Sir," his sensor officer reported, mandibles clicking rapidly in distress, "the humans are venting their atmosphere. Deliberately. They're using the expelled gas as reaction mass for micro-adjustments in their attack vector." "Impossible," Zax Troll breathed. "No species can maintain combat effectiveness in such conditions. The psychological toll alone." Through the command channel, he heard something that chilled his blood. Human laughter. The crew of the Defiant Spirit, operating in conditions that should have broken their morale, were enjoying themselves. "You know what the best part is, General?" Rodriguez's voice cut through the channel. "Every time you damage one of our ships, we learn a new way to fight without that system. Your attacks aren't crippling us. They're teaching us which parts we don't really need." As if to prove his point, the Defiant Spirit executed another impossible maneuver. With its main engines damaged, it used precisely timed decompression of sealed compartments to rotate, bringing its remaining weapons to bear on a second hegemony cruiser. "Full retreat," Zax Troll ordered, his composure finally breaking. "All ships, maximum distance from human vessels." "Running so soon?" Rodriguez called out. "But we just figured out how to use our battle damage as improvised weapons. Don't you want to see what else we can do with a broken ship?" As the hegemony fleet retreated, Zax Troll realized a terrible truth. The humans weren't just adapting to survive. They were adapting to thrive in conditions that should have killed them. Each limitation became an advantage, each damage report a new tactical opportunity. They weren't just fighting a war. They were conducting an accelerated evolution of space combat doctrine, written in real time with his fleet as unwilling teachers. Dr. William Buck Harrison's psychological analysis filled the holographic display in General Zax Troll's private quarters. The human psychologist's report had been intercepted during a routine communication sweep, but its contents were anything but routine. "Play audio log entry 13. Zax Troll commanded, his 4 eyes fixed on the rotating display of human brain activity patterns. Harrison's voice filled the room. "The key difference isn't in their technology, it's in their minds. The hegemony species evolved through gradual adaptation. Humans, we evolved through crisis response. Every major leap in our development came from surviving something that should have killed us." The general's secondary arms twitched as combat footage began playing alongside the audio. A human destroyer, the Relentless Dawn, took a direct hit to its bridge. Standard combat doctrine predicted immediate surrender or retreat. Instead, the crew laughed. "Computer, replay that section." "Audio analysis," Zax Troll ordered. "Confirmed. Human vocalizations indicate amusement, not distress," the computer responded, cross-referencing with Dr. Harrison's notes on gallows humor, a psychological defense mechanism unique to humans. Harrison's voice continued. "They don't just accept death as a possibility. They mock it. Every human culture has developed traditions of facing mortality with defiance. The hegemony sees this as primitive. They're wrong. It's evolution." New footage appeared. Colonel Rodriguez's crew on the Defiant Spirit, working in vacuum conditions after their life support failed. They were singing. The computer provided a translation of the lyrics, something called "Another One Bites the Dust." The standard psychological warfare playbook assumes that showing a species their own mortality will break their will to fight. Harrison explained. With humans, it has the opposite effect. The closer to death they get, the more creative they become. Zax Troll accessed his own species' combat recordings. In 10,000 years of warfare, he found no examples of hegemony soldiers laughing in the face of death. Their bravery came from discipline, from knowing their role in a greater plan. Human bravery seemed to come from somewhere else entirely. Section 23, the General commanded. Behavioral analysis of captured crew members. The display shifted to interrogation footage. Lieutenant James Cooper, captured during the first engagement, sat across from his hegemony interrogator. The lieutenant should have been terrified. Instead, he was teaching his guard how to play a card game called poker. Notice the subtle psychological manipulation, Harrison's notes indicated. Within 3 hours, Cooper had the guard sympathizing with him. Within 6 hours, he had extracted details about ship security protocols through casual conversation. He turned his own captivity into an intelligence-gathering operation. Zaxtral's mandibles clicked in growing unease as he accessed more files. Every standard psychological pressure point failed against humans. Isolation made them more self-reliant. Stress made them more innovative. Even sleep deprivation seemed to unlock new levels of creativity in their problem-solving. Final log entry. Harrison's voice returned. I've identified the key concept the hegemony fails to grasp. Spite. Humans don't just fight to win. They'd fight to prove others wrong. Tell a human something is impossible, and they'll devote their lives to doing it. Tell them they can't win, and they'll rewrite the rules of the game. The general watched new tactical footage of Major Lisa Walker's Special Forces unit. They had taken a damaged hegemony shuttle and turned it into a Trojan horse, using the hegemony's own security protocols against them. The operation succeeded because no one had imagined anyone would attempt something so audacious. In conclusion, Harrison's final notes scrolled past. The hegemony's psychological warfare fails because it's based on rational responses to threat and intimidation. Humans aren't rational. They're something far more dangerous. They're emotionally adaptive. They don't just overcome their fears. They weaponize them. Zaxtral closed the display, his inner stomach churning. In all his cycles of military service, he had never encountered a species that grew stronger under psychological pressure. The hegemony had built its empire on the assumption that all sentient life followed predictable patterns of response to threat and dominance. Humans didn't just break those patterns, they seemed to derive joy from doing so. Each attempt to demoralize them became a challenge to overcome, each display of superior force an invitation to innovate. Computer, he commanded, access historical records. Find any examples of species that developed sustainable countermeasures to human psychological warfare. The response chilled him to his core. No such records exist. Species engaging in prolonged conflict with humans either adapted to coexistence or suffered strategic defeat through innovative human response patterns. The general stared out his viewport at the distant Earth, understanding finally dawning. They weren't just fighting human ships and weapons. They were fighting human nature itself. And human nature, it seemed, had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of turning adversity into advantage. Admiral Catherine, Iron Cape Blackwood, stood before the curved display wall of the Enhanced Combat Evolution Center, her weathered features illuminated by scrolling combat data. Behind her, Dr. Alexander Mitchell's team of programmers worked frantically, their fingers dancing across holographic interfaces as they refined their latest combat algorithms. The hegemony fleet is adjusting their formation, Lieutenant Commander Robert Chen reported, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. They're implementing countermeasures to our last attack pattern. Blackwood allowed herself a small smile, exactly as predicted. Alex, how long until the new neural net processes their response? Mitchell didn't look up from his console, his fingers never stopping their rapid movement. Processing now. Their tactical adjustments follow standard hegemony doctrine, beautiful in its precision, terrifying in its predictability. On the Eternal Dominion, General Zaxtral watched with growing concern as his fleet executed their newest defensive pattern. Status report on the human fleet's approach vector. Sir, his tactical officer's mandibles clicked in confusion. Their ships, they're moving differently. Each vessel appears to be running a unique combat algorithm. There's no central pattern to analyze. Zaxtral's secondary arms twitched in frustration. Impossible. No fleet can coordinate effectively without standardized protocols. Back in the Evolution Center, Blackwood watched the hegemony's response unfold. "They're still thinking like an empire," she observed. "They see our individual ship behaviors as chaos rather than adaptation." Mitchell's system chimed, drawing everyone's attention. Neural network has completed its analysis. Each of our ships now has a unique counter to their current formation. But here's the beautiful part. We're not just countering their moves. We're learning from them. The battle unfolded like a dance, but one where only one partner was learning new steps. Human ships moved with increasing precision, each vessel's AI combining the best aspects of hegemony efficiency with human unpredictability. "Sir," the hegemony tactical officer's voice rose in pitch. "The humans, their combat efficiency has increased by 40% since our last engagement. They're using our own maneuvers against us, but with modifications we never considered." Zaxtrol watched in horror as a human destroyer executed a perfect hegemony precision strike pattern, but with an impossible variation that turned the carefully calculated maneuver into something entirely new. How are they learning so quickly? The answer came in the form of a transmission from the Evolution Center. Admiral Blackwood's image appeared on his command screen, her expression calm but determined. "Interesting techniques you've shown us, General. Your fleet moves like a perfectly choreographed ballet. The problem is, you've been dancing the same steps for 1,000 years." Mitchell's voice cut in, his excitement barely contained. "Your standardization protocols are fascinating, perfect for maintaining consistent performance across a vast empire. But they're also predictable. Every time you move, you teach our learning algorithms something new." On the tactical display, Zaxtrol watched as a wing of human ships split their formation in a way that should have left them vulnerable. Instead, they wove through his fleet's defenses like water through rocks, each ship's movement complementing the others in an ever-changing pattern. "You don't understand what you're dealing with," Blackwood continued. "We didn't just develop combat AI. We developed learning machines that evolve faster than organic minds can think. Every second of combat feeds their growth." The general's inner stomach clenched as he realized the truth. His fleet's greatest strength, its perfect standardization and coordination, had become its greatest weakness. They were facing an enemy that didn't just learn from their mistakes, but from their successes as well. "Full retreat," he ordered, his voice heavy with the weight of revelation. "All ships, disengage immediately." As the hegemony fleet pulled back, Mitchell's voice carried a note of genuine gratitude. "Thanks for the combat data, General. Your tactics were exactly what our neural networks needed to reach the next evolutionary stage. Come back when you're ready to teach us something new." In the Evolution Center, Blackwood watched the hegemony ships vanish into faster-than-light travel. "How much did we learn this time, Alex?" Mitchell's fingers flew across his console, compiling the battle data. "Their entire combat doctrine, Admiral. 10,000 years of military evolution, downloaded and improved upon in less than 6 hours. The next generation of our ships will be faster, more efficient, and more adaptable than anything the galaxy has ever seen." And the hegemony? Still running the same programs they started with. They're not just losing battles anymore. They're losing the race for tactical evolution. Every engagement makes us stronger while they remain unchanged. Blackwood turned to face her team, her expression serious. "Then let's make sure we're ready for their next lesson. Humanity didn't survive this long by being slow learners." General Zaxtrol sat motionless in his neural interface chamber aboard the Eternal Dominion, all 4 eyes fixed on the battle recording playing through his direct cortical link. Commander Jack "Lucky" O'Neill's final stand replayed in perfect clarity, every detail preserved by the hegemony's advanced sensors. "Play it again," he commanded. "Enhance tactical overlay." The scene unfolded once more. O'Neill's destroyer, the Last Laugh, heavily damaged and venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. 3 hegemony cruisers had cornered the vessel near one of Earth's lunar colonies. By all tactical analysis, surrender was the only logical option. "Magnify bridge communications," Zaxtrol ordered. O'Neill's voice filled his consciousness, The human commander's tone remarkably calm despite his ship's critical condition. "Engineering, how many jumps do we have left in the reactor?" "Maybe one, sir," his chief engineer responded. "But the containment field is failing. We try to jump, we'll tear ourselves apart." "Perfect." O'Neill's vital signs showed not fear, but a surge of excitement. "All hands, this is the commander. Set condition black. Initiative Samson is now in effect." Zaxtral's secondary arms twitched as he accessed the cultural database. "Samson," he muttered, "a human mythological figure who destroyed his enemies by bringing down a temple upon them, sacrificing himself in the process." The tactical display showed the last power core becoming dangerously unstable. The hegemony cruisers, detecting the buildup, began to retreat. But O'Neill had anticipated this. Hidden thrusters, previously powered down to appear damage, fired in precise sequence. "Sir," the memory of his tactical officer's warning played out. "The human vessel is executing some kind of suicide attack pattern." "Impossible," past Zaxtral had responded. "No species willingly sacrifices capital ships. Their psychological profiles show." The recording burst into brilliant light as the last reactor detonated. But this was no simple explosion. O'Neill had turned his ship's death into a carefully choreographed dance of destruction. The blast wave, shaped by precisely calculated shield harmonics, caught all three hegemony cruisers in a triangulated pattern. "You know what your problem is, General." O'Neill's final transmission played through the neural link. "You think we fight to win. We don't. We fight to learn. Every punch you throw teaches us how to hit back harder. Thanks for the lessons." Zaxtral emerged from the neural interface, his inner stomach churning with revelation. He turned to his tactical officer, who waited patiently for orders. "Show me the analysis of human combat evolution since first contact," he commanded. The display filled with data streams. Combat efficiency ratings, technological adaptation curves, strategic innovation metrics. Every line showed the same pattern: exponential growth. "Sir," his officer reported, "we've detected something disturbing in the debris field from the last incident. The humans, they're salvaging their own wreckage. And the hegemony ships they destroyed." "Of course they are," Zaxtral whispered. "They're learning from their defeats as much as their victories. Even their losses teach them something new." He stood, moving to the viewing portal where Earth hung distant but defiant. In his mind, O'Neill's words echoed. "Every punch you throw teaches us how to hit back harder." "Pull up the statistical projections," he ordered. "Show me the combat effectiveness curve for both forces over the next standard cycle." The display told a story that chilled his blood. The hegemony's combat effectiveness remained almost flat, their standardized protocols resistant to change. The human forces, however, showed no sign of reaching a plateau. Each engagement, each battle, each sacrifice pushed them further up an endless curve of improvement. "Sir," his tactical officer's mandibles clicked nervously, "these projections suggest that within one standard cycle, human combat capabilities will exceed our own. Within 2 cycles, they'll be able to challenge the entire hegemony fleet." "No," Zaxtral corrected, his voice heavy with understanding. "They won't need to, because we've already given them everything they need to surpass us. Every tactic we use, every technology we deploy, every standard response we fall back on. It all becomes part of their evolution." He turned from the viewport, his decision crystallizing. "The Hegemony Council must be informed. We haven't been fighting a war. We've been accelerating the development of a species that transforms conflict itself into advancement. The longer we fight, the stronger they become." In the distance, salvage ships moved through the debris field of O'Neill's last battle, gathering pieces of both human and hegemony technology. Each fragment would be studied. Each destroyed system would inspire a dozen improvements. Each sacrifice would fuel their relentless drive to evolve. They weren't just learning to fight better. They were learning to turn warfare itself into an engine of advancement, powered by the very forces sent to subdue them. The Hegemony Council chamber fell silent as General Zaxtral's emergency transmission filled the vast holographic space. 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy watched as Lieutenant Diana, Phoenix, Reynolds' strike team demonstrated humanity's latest evolution in warfare. Observe, Zaxtral's voice carried a weight that commanded attention. This is no longer merely human combat doctrine. What you're witnessing is the next stage of tactical evolution. The footage showed Reynolds' team moving through a disabled Hegemony destroyer. Human soldiers worked in perfect synchronization with combat AI units, their movements a deadly dance of organic intuition and machine precision. Each AI had learned from thousands of previous engagements, while each human brought the unpredictable creativity that made their species so formidable. Strike Team Phoenix, breaching final compartment. Reynolds' voice came through clearly. Carl, run pattern echo. The lead AI unit, designated Carl, processed the command through neural networks trained on every previous Hegemony encounter. Analysis complete. Detecting 3 potential ambush points based on standard Hegemony defensive protocols. Recommending non-standard approach. Reynolds smiled beneath her combat helmet. Show me something new, partner. What followed made several council members' secondary appendages tremble. The human A-team executed a breach maneuver that combined classical human special forces tactics with machine learning optimized movements. They didn't just counter the Hegemony's defensive position. They turned it into a trap for the defenders. The integration is complete, Zaxtral continued. They've merged their biological creativity with synthetic learning capabilities. Each engagement makes both components stronger. The AIs learn to think more creatively, while the humans learn to process tactical data more efficiently. One council member raised a primary appendage. Surely our technological superiority no longer exists. Zaxtral interrupted, breaking protocol. Lieutenant Hayes' final report arrived this morning. I believe you should all watch it. Hayes appeared in the holographic space, her expression confident. General, I want to thank you for an excellent learning experience. Your invasion fleet provided exactly the data we needed to complete our combat evolution project. As a gesture of professional courtesy, I think you should know, we weren't developing weapons to fight you. We were developing ourselves. The footage shifted to Earth's orbital shipyards. New vessels were under construction, but their design philosophy was like nothing the Council had ever seen. Each ship incorporated lessons learned from the conflict, but taken in directions no Hegemony engineer would have conceived. We estimate, Hayes continued, that within one standard cycle, our combined human-AI combat units will be able to process and counter any Hegemony tactic before it's fully executed. Within 2 cycles, we'll be able to predict your tactical decisions before you make them. But that's not why I'm sending this message. The council chamber's atmosphere grew heavy as Hayes smiled. We don't want to fight you, General. We want to learn from you. Your tactics, your technology, your 10,000 years of military evolution. It's all fascinating. But if you force us to learn through conflict, we will. And we'll exceed every limitation you thought existed. Zaxtral's mandibles clicked as he delivered his final analysis. The humans have achieved something unprecedented. They've turned warfare itself into a catalyst for evolution. Every battle doesn't just make them stronger, it accelerates their rate of advancement. We are no longer facing a simple military force. We are facing a species that transforms conflict into growth. The Council's chief strategist spoke, her voice carrying centuries of wisdom. Your recommendation, General. Immediate peace negotiations, Zaxtral replied without hesitation. Not from a position of strength, but from one of mutual respect. The humans don't want conquest. They want knowledge. If we continue this conflict, we'll only prove Lieutenant Hayes' prediction correct. They will surpass us, not because they hate us, but because we gave them no choice but to evolve beyond us. As if to emphasize his point, new tactical data streamed into the chamber. 3 other hostile species had attempted probing actions against Earth's defenses. All three had retreated after encountering variations of Reynolds' hybrid combat teams. The term Death World Species was beginning to circulate in galactic diplomatic channels, not as an insult, but as a designation of profound respect. "We stand at a crossroads," Zax Troll concluded. "We can continue fighting and watch humanity evolve into an unstoppable force, or we can embrace their greatest strength, their endless desire to learn and grow. The choice we make today will determine whether we become their adversaries in an unwinnable arms race, or their partners in an unprecedented journey of discovery." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They had intended to subjugate a primitive species. Instead, they had awakened something unprecedented in galactic history, a civilization that turned the very act of resistance into a path to transcendence.